All right. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to make sure that everything goes okay on YouTube, and then I'm going to post the live notice to Parler. And let's go ahead and do that now because so far we've been doing really good. Okay. And I hear myself on YouTube. So there we go. Parler is the only one that does not let me schedule a live post. So, um, or yeah, sorry, schedule a post. Tumblr and Twitter, I can schedule my posts in advance so that they post automatically at 12:30 when I go live. Parler does not let me do that yet. But I am on Parler. I am on Tumblr and Twitter. Most of you who are watching this know me from Tumblr, so you've got that. But I am on Twitter. I've been more active on Twitter lately in the last couple months. So if you haven't followed my Twitter and you are on Twitter, I know some people have left it for places like Parler, which is why I'm on Parler too. But if you are still on Twitter, at pro-life_liberty, because pro-life, pro-liberty didn't fit. It was too long. So I did do pro-life_liberty and it worked. So I am on Twitter. I've been posting more often, especially about COVID and ending some of these restrictions, which we're going to talk about first. So I've got three main topics for today. They are in the title, obviously, and I have links in the description below for just about everything I'm going to talk about. So you're going to start off with the mental health toll of COVID, and this is the thing is I'm going to be citing people who are totally bought into the COVID, whatever, like, excuse me, people who are totally like, yeah, COVID is deadly and we're all going to die and we need a vaccine. Like these are the people I'm citing. Um, and I make that point because there is like, it's like even these people who think that the lockdowns are necessary and stuff, they recognize the toll. And if we can just kind of nudge that and say, okay, if we can compare benefit and risk, and is the cure worse than the disease, especially when you have a 99.997% survival rate for people from ages 20 to 49 and a 99.91% survival rate for elderly people. And that is from the CDC website, which I need to add that link. So I will probably add that link to the description later, but I found that from the CDC, so I will add that. Real important to be able to cite that statistic. It's an important statistic. So I will add that after the stream. I will add that link. So check back later. Um, let's see. So anyway, so we're going to talk about mental health with COVID. And so I think everybody is aware of this. Like everybody I've talked to, even people who again are totally bought into COVID is the worst thing that's ever happened and we're all going to die if we don't lock down and wear masks and whatever. And that we need the vaccine and everybody has to take the vaccine. Even again, I don't think I've talked to anybody who doesn't recognize the mental health toll. But what I think we need to talk about is what is it exactly going to look like? So there's a lot of things that are going to go into that. And what are we going to do about it? What needs to happen in order for us to come out on the other side of this and in order to mitigate the damage so that has already been done because a lot of damage has already been done. So there's some stuff that we can't prevent because it's already happened and we have to say, okay, how are we going to treat? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with the impact of this? And also, how are we going to prevent this from continuing, especially in young children, are who I'm most concerned about with this. But it's going to be everybody. So this was posted. This is the December 2020 issue of Scientific American. And so this is a recent article, and it talks about things like illness or fear of illness. So you have the anxiety issue of I'm going to die, which was not helped by the media, right? So the media, and so even says the way media consumption exacerbates it. So the media is really, culpable, I think, and that's all, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they're all culpable for this. And they need to take responsibility. I think there needs to be a level of responsibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they are going to, because they get so many ratings, they get so many views out of this fear, because you know, they get you tuned in because you think that you have to be watching the news 24/7 or you're going to miss something, when they've been saying essentially the same tired old talking points since March. So, I mean, you're not really missing much. I've recently stopped watching Fox even. I used to watch Fox, understanding that they were biased, understanding, but kind of saying, okay, they're going to give a certain perspective, and I know what that perspective is. I know how to kind of filter for that, but I don't even know anymore, because they're not even Fox isn't even conservative anymore. Like, they're not conservative. They're definitely not libertarian. Oof. So there's definitely I'm definitely in the market for new media sources, and I've found a few that I really like. As I've mentioned before, when we get to the election fraud issue, Stephen Crowder is doing a really, really, really good job on the election fraud issue. So watching Louder with Crowder, that's Mondays through Thursdays at, I believe, 9 a.m. Central Time, so 9 a.m. for me. Um, Really, really worth watching. And I have not subscribed to Mug Club yet, because then you get the full thing, because he cuts it off at a certain point, goes off YouTube and goes straight to his website, and talks about additional things that would probably get the channel kicked off of YouTube. So I'm kind of curious. I've thought about joining, but if you join and you choose to go join and watch that, please let me know what you think and if I should join as well. But anyway, so I'm definitely kind of in the market for new media. Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm taking a look at them again. They're going to be more pro Trump, and you know how I'm like, I voted for Trump in 2016. I did not vote for him in 2020. I voted for Joe Jorgensen this year. So I'm not a hardcore Trump fan, but I also, I'm real sick of watching the media bash him for everything, and like for things that he actually did right. Like, there's some stuff he did right, and they won't give him credit for that and that sort of thing. So even though I don't agree with there's a lot of things that Trump has done or stands for or supports that I don't agree with, but it, to see the manipulation, and so that ties back into the media. So the media fueling for the last 4 years at least, I mean, especially the last 4 years, and I mean prior to that as well, fueling fear. And honestly, I think you can trace it back further. I mean, in my lifetime, I can look back to 9/11, and I was not, really aware of what was going on, because I was in third grade. Yeah, I would have had to have been third grade. Excuse me, my hair is like itching my ear. Weird. Okay, sorry. But I was in third grade when 9/11 happened, and so I remember there being a big deal about it. I don't think I wasn't fully told, it wasn't fully explained to me what exactly had happened. Just something bad had happened. And I remember my friend and I did a lemonade stand, and we raised money for the firefighters and the police officers in New York City, because we were just told that they needed help, and we weren't told why, but it was just this concept. But I do think kids today are way more inundated with the fear and stuff of what's going on, because I see kids, today that are more aware than they should be. Because, like, that's the thing, is when I was in third grade and 9/11 happened, I think the level of information I was given was appropriate for my age. Now, the problem was, because I think so many people were so glued to the TV, there were a lot of things that were expected to be common knowledge. And so as I got older, there was stuff that I learned about, like when I got older, I wasn't fully taught about it, but until later. But anyway, I think the level of information I was given at the time was appropriate, because it gave me the awareness that something had happened, that people were upset, and that there was something we could do about it. So we had a lemonade stand, raise money. There was something that could be done, and so there was no feeling of helplessness. There was no feeling of like that I had to be looking over my shoulder, that something crazy was going to happen to me. So I wasn't given a personal like anxiety. It was more of an empathy of, hey, something's bad happened. We want to be empathetic to other people who are going through a tough time right now. And so that was, I think, a different concept. But with COVID and with the political situation, kids are so I don't even want to say aware because they aren't being given accurate information. I teach middle school, and the things that my students say about Trump or about politics are just so off the wall. But I know exactly where they come from. I know that they come from MSNBC and CNN because I've heard those things from adults. It's like I've heard adults say those things, and I hear the kids parroting them. And all of this leads to this fear and anxiety. And like I have students who had anxiety about the possibility of Trump winning, um, which that shouldn't be something that they should have to be anxious about. And it's not because of Trump being terrible, it's because they were fed this fear, and there was no effort to kind of mitigate that or you know I mean, it was not age appropriate. The level of fear that they were fed by the media was not age appropriate. And so I think in children, especially, we're going to see a huge increase in mental illness, both from the political divisiveness and the fear that has been promoted around that, but also from COVID. So because here's the thing, like if starting back in March, when the media coverage of COVID went from this is no big deal, it's less deadly than the flu, it's don't worry about it, wash your hands and you're fine. Like that was the media coverage in February. And then in March, all of a sudden it shifted to this is a deadly pandemic and we're all going to die. Very quickly, very quickly. It was a very abrupt shift. And if you are somebody who just passively consumes the media, you don't go seek out information, you don't research, you don't question. If you watch the news and absorb the news, and whatever the news says, that is what happened. Like if that's your outlook on life and on the media, and a lot of people are this way, not because they're lazy or not because they're not thinking or whatever, but because they're busy. Like people have other things to worry about, um, and they just want to turn the news on and get okay, what's going on in the world? Okay, turn the news off and go about my life. But we can't do that anymore with the major, what people are calling now legacy media. We used to call it mainstream media. Now we call it legacy media, I guess. But the major news networks, you can't just passively absorb anymore, and because you're not going to get anything accurate out of that. So, but if you've been passively absorbing the media since March, and if you watch the news every day starting in mid March, and you watch the news every day because you're scared, and because each day they ramp up the fear, you probably have like a severe anxiety disorder. You probably have trauma. You've probably been traumatized by the media at this point. And on my trip to California, where I live streamed from California last weekend, or not 2 weekends ago. I didn't. There was no stream last weekend. 2 weekends ago, I was in California. While I was there, I talked to a lot of people who, because up until that point, I would see people on the internet or in the media panicking about COVID, but I didn't know as many people personally who were because within my church, within my family, within my friend group, none of us were really panicked. And, some people were more cautious than others and whatever. But for the most part, everybody was just kind of like, yeah, wash your hands, it's a flu, it'll be fine. Then, go to California and talk to people there. And my goodness, just to see the level of fear and anxiety and that there is trauma. And I like what I saw were people who were traumatized by the fear, people who had absorbed the news. And I would talk to people and they would recite um, things, sound bites from the news, things that they'd heard. And I would give them, well, here's this study, and the study says this, and doctors are finding these treatments and all that kind of stuff. And it was stuff that they'd never heard. They were like, I'd never heard of that. A really interesting one was the whole concept of antibodies and immunity, because that was a big thing at the beginning. Was okay, if you get this virus and you recover from it, can you get it again? Because if not, that tells us that we could get herd immunity, especially since it's a 99.999 7% survival rate for people who are between 20 and 49 years of age, meaning that, if you let the young and healthy people go about their lives, and it's actually a higher survival rate for under 20. So if I say 20 to 49, under 20 is even a higher survival rate. So if you let schools be open, you let people go about their lives, because you get, if you go from 0 to 49, that's the majority of, that's children in school and a good portion of working adults. And then you get to, because you get 50 to 70, and you start to get people who are starting to retire, and people still working, but you get more and more retired people, or more people who are maybe working less hours, things like that, and who maybe can, or who are further along. And you get to people in their 50s, and you're going to have more people who are able to work from home because they're further along in their careers and that sort of thing. So if you look at the people who are working customer facing jobs, who have to be in person, who can't work from home, a lot of those people are in that 20 to 49 range, meaning that they have a 99.9997% survival rate. So if you let all those people go out, go about their lives, do their thing, and maybe in those people who are in that age range but have a severe immunocompromised condition, like they have something that, they're undergoing cancer treatment or something like that, or they have cystic fibrosis or whatever, something like that, where they have a severely compromised immune system. In those cases, yes, they should still stay home. Um, or they should be, whatever they need to do to protect themselves. But, could be even just working on building up immune system and things like that. But if you're, if you're in that category, yeah, take those precautions. But everybody else at this point, what we should have done as soon as we realized what the death rate was and that the antibodies do stick around, as soon as we realized that, we should have said, hey, everybody go out. If anything, go get this thing, go get this virus, recover from it, get the virus, isolate yourself, recover from it, go out. You have antibodies now. You're fine. I would much rather get the virus, quarantine, isolate myself, get the virus, isolate myself, test negative, and then go about my life. I would much rather do that than take a vaccine that's unproven, that's like not well tested. We don't have any long-term testing on this type of vaccine, all that sort of stuff. But but the thing is, like, so we have that research on the antibodies, and we can know that, like, okay, if you get it, you can't get it again. If somebody's had it and they've recovered, then they have the antibodies, they can't give it to you. So if they don't wear a mask, or they, so don't social like, you can hang out with them, and they're not going to give you COVID, and you're not going to give them COVID because they've already had it. So what I ran into were people who, even after I gave them that information, and that, like, I think we're at 4 or 5 people total who have gotten COVID twice, where they got COVID, had symptoms, like not just a false positive test result, but they had symptoms. They were, or even really mild symptoms. They recovered for it. Yes, they had the antibodies, and then they got it again, or and there's about 4 or 5 people who that's the case, out of millions. 4 or 5 people out of millions who have had the virus and recovered. So the statistics, the data says, if you get COVID and you recover, unless you have something real weird about your immune system, then you're fine and you can go about your life. You don't need any of this stuff. Now, I think you're fine anyway, but as far as people who are concerned about spreading the disease, I think we could reach herd immunity to the point where this becomes a less concerning thing, as far as even just infection rates, which again don't equal death rates and whatever. But if we're talking about getting people comfortable going back to work, going out to eat and all that stuff, herd immunity seems to be the fastest way. And if we'd done that from the beginning, I think we'd be in a very different world right now. But instead, we decided we couldn't risk herd immunity. We couldn't risk people getting the virus, and we had to slow the spread. We had to do all that stuff. But we, you know, but the people I was talking to were of the opinion that even though somebody had gotten the virus, had recovered from the virus, had antibodies for the virus, and in this case was regularly testing negative for the virus, for like they were having regular tests done for their work, for their job, and they were testing negative repeatedly. because they had antibodies because they couldn't get it again. And the people I was talking to were still not convinced. We're still concerned about spending time with this person, that somehow this person was going to still spread COVID to them. And to me, there was just no way to have this conversation because I could cite all the evidence. I could cite, I could say, hey, here's this article, here's this study. Um, it didn't matter. It like there was no evidence that would have convinced them. It wasn't like, oh, show me a study, oh, show me this. It was just no, you know, I don't feel comfortable, being around that person. And when you get to that level, the rationality is gone, and it is simply fear. It is simply anxiety when that happens. And that really concerned me because the people I was talking to, where we had this conversation, are people who I don't agree with them on everything, but normally, even the things we disagree on, we can have a rational conversation, we can present evidence, we can discuss. But this was just no. There's no discussion. There's no falsifiability to this idea of I'm worried. Saying I'm worried, I'm scared. You can't disprove that, right? Those are feelings, and that's anxiety. The idea of I'm scared, I don't feel comfortable, right? Those are things you can't disprove, that you can't just make go away with new data or new evidence. And I think to a certain level, as we're seeing this here, like in this article, they're going into this, and talking about people with people who already had mental health issues. If you already had anxiety going into this and you're being fed this information, you're at this point going to be traumatized, and you're not going to be processing information rationally. And that's what I'm at, kind of roundabout way to get to this point, is that you're not processing the science. We're told to listen to the science, listen to the experts. We're not processing that information. We're not questioning it. We're not thinking critically about it if we're traumatized. So when you're traumatized, you go into self-preservation, and you're going to, and that's where you have fear because you're trying to protect yourself, and you're not willing to take risks, and you're not willing to evaluate new information because you're just trying to shield yourself. And so it's hard for your brain to process when somebody's telling you something that contradicts the narrative that you have in your head, because that narrative you believe is protecting you. So we're going to see a huge rise in mental health issues. We're going to see a huge rise in, it says young adults are the most effective, it says 18 to 24-year-olds, college age, who are going out into the world, who are going out um, into society, who are getting, in some cases, getting their first jobs or starting their careers, um, going into workplaces and stuff like that, or virtual workplaces in some cases. But, and it was just, they did some kind of real time, some way of tracking distress and depression, at different points, between mid-March and mid-April. But, and that's the thing, is like they were expecting old people to be anxious because the narrative was that old people are at risk for the virus, and therefore old people should be the ones who are most scared, right? But it was the young adults that were the most scared because the young adults were being targeted by social media campaigns, by broadcast media, cable networks. They were the ones being targeted with this fear, about this virus and about spreading it, and I think it's because back at the beginning of this, young people were just like, oh yeah, it's no big deal, it's the flu, I've gotten the flu before. And they're going out to the beaches and they're partying and stuff, and so people panic. The people who wanted us to be afraid realized, okay, if we want to control the population, we have to get to the young people. And I think that's what they did. Targeted the young people, even though the older people are the ones who are vulnerable, who had a reason to potentially be scared of this. The young people were targeted, and I think that's why we went to closing schools. I think it was because you had to make young people afraid. You had to convince young people that they were in danger as well, if you wanted to actually control the population, especially since the millennial age group, which now is now middle-aged people. It's not necessarily young adults, but it's middle-aged. Um, we are a very significant sized generation. We are the next baby boom, basically, after the baby boomers. And so our generation is a significant portion of the population at this point. And so if you don't get to us, if you don't get us to be afraid, and also our Gen Z count, younger siblings, basically, if you don't get us to be afraid, then you can't, you're missing a whole big portion of the population. And so it talks about all these different things. And also, this is another big one. So it says fewer hugs and less shared grieving. So, why people are not adjusting. Because normally, again, when we have something like 9/11, when we have a major traumatic event in our society, what we do is we go out and hug each other. We get together in groups, we get together in communities, we have community events where large groups of people gather and socialize and get together because that helps ground us. And that's the biggest thing of all of this. It's not just the isolation, the fear of COVID, and all of this. It's the fact that, I mean, it's the isolation in the sense that in other times where we've had traumatic events, we've been able to deal with them because we've been able to ground ourselves. When we start to spiral, when we start to get worked up, we're able to go, you know, simply like a hug from a loved one can be incredibly grounding for somebody who is in a kind of panic attack spiral. And when you can't do that, when you can't go get a hug from somebody, right? When you can't go socialize with somebody and just, socialization in person, like physically gathering in the same place gives you a sense of reality check. It also is good for the political division aspect of it because you're talking to people who think differently than you, and you're able to share ideas and you're able to see the reality. Because when you're cooped up inside your home and you're isolated and you're being fed the media, you're being fed a narrative, and that narrative may or may not match up with reality. But if you can step outside that, and if you can literally step outside, literally just like go outside and see, if you can go outside and see, okay, there's, the streets are not littered with dead people, right? You can go drive down to the hospital. The hospital parking lots are empty, or not packed at least. Um, and that hospital beds. Give me 1 second, y'all. I forgot to plug in my laptop. All right, I'm very sorry about that. I forgot to plug in my laptop before I started the stream. Anyway, so all this comes to, the normal coping mechanisms that we have for for an event like this are gone. And without our coping mechanisms, without our ability to, deal with this as a community, we're going to see this increase. And, there's a lot of things I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see depression, anxiety, suicide increase among young people. And I know we've had some of those already, and all of that. But another interesting one specifically that I heard mentioned recently on Liberty Doll's live stream, and I wanted to look into it, is agoraphobia. And from my understanding, I don't think that COVID itself, I don't think that people are necessarily getting agoraphobia in greater numbers as per the like official definition of agoraphobia. So agoraphobia is being afraid of open spaces. The agora in Greek, in ancient Greece, the agora was the marketplace. So essentially, it's a fear of the marketplace, a fear of being out in the open, and crowds can be part of it. But it's not claustrophobia in the sense of being stuck in a dense crowd, but it's more about the idea of being out in the open and being vulnerable. It really is connected to being vulnerable and exposed, and not secure, and not being able to get to a safe place. And so people will, so some people with agoraphobia are home all the time, like they don't want to leave their home, and in a very severe extreme cases. But in less severe cases or in just variations, they will go to certain familiar places that are secure for them, that are safe for them, but they will not go to new places, or especially, public crowded places. But agoraphobia often comes from a trauma. A lot of times, people with agoraphobia, they have some kind of traumatic event, and it could be something like a car crash, and then they're afraid to drive, or it could be something like they're, you know, um, I've heard cases where like they got mugged. They were out walking somewhere and they got mugged. There's situations like that where something traumatic happened to them when they were out in public, and they felt vulnerable, they felt exposed, they felt like they were not safe. Um, and to you know to deal with that, and so instead of if they're not able to process that trauma and have the healthy coping mechanisms, what they end up doing is saying, well, I'm just not going to leave my home, or I'm going to stick to these very familiar places, maybe familiar driving routes, avoiding the street that they had the accident on, things like that. It's just going to affect their ability to go do things. Um, and what's interesting here is this isn't necessarily agoraphobia, because it's not so much the fear of the open space, but it mimics agoraphobia in the sense that you're going to be afraid of crowds. You're going to be afraid of public places because you've been fed the idea that public places are deadly, that people are deadly, that being around people is dangerous to your health. And so you're going to get symptoms that mimic agoraphobia. And so it talks about kind of worsen when quarantine ends, in the sense, and this is, see, when was this? This was June. So this is when a lot of places were still, I mean, a lot of places are still really shut down, but some places were just starting to open up in June. Um, but now we're kind of seeing a repeat of this. So I think this is relevant again. Restrictions are lifting across the country. And so in some cases, and this is what I've been kind of saying for a little bit now, is that when, even if we got to a point where like most of society was back to normal and we were, not wearing masks, all that, maybe the mask mandates end, the lockdowns end, and, like we're not doing this stuff. If we get to that point, which I think it's going to take a lot for us to get there, but if we got there, I think there's going to be a significant portion of the population that will still be afraid to come out. Like we could have the vaccine, we could have like 80% of people take the vaccine, whatever. I'm not taking the vaccine. I wouldn't recommend taking the vaccine for a lot of reasons, but um, let's say we got everybody takes the vaccine, or 75, 80% of people take the vaccine, and we have herd immunity, and the officials, the experts declare that COVID is over, which I don't think is going to happen. Like I've said on my blog and on my Twitter, COVID is going to be over when we, the people, declare that it is over. The experts will never declare it over, or they'll just shift it to the next thing, like the flu or whatever. Like this, what we're in, will not be declared over by the experts. But let's just say they did. Let's say that the Fauci gets on TV and he says COVID is over. You're fine. Go back to your lives. Nothing. No big deal. Not going to happen. Let's say it did. um, there is going to be a significant portion of people who would still not be comfortable coming out of their homes, who would still be living in fear, um, possibly for years or decades, or even the rest of their lives, just because it's been so ingrained in them to be afraid, that even if they logically knew that there was nothing to be afraid of, they would have an innate, almost autonomic, reaction, something involuntary fear, anxiety reaction. It's not rational at that point. That's where you get phobia. Phobias are irrational fears, right? So it's not just, oh, I'm afraid of getting sick, or I'm afraid of this virus or whatever. It's, I have an irrational fear that even though I know that there's no danger intellectually, I have this fear. Um, and one of the problems is that the best treatment for agoraphobia is exposure therapy. And that's usually done where the therapist will meet the person in their safe place, such as their home or wherever it is that their safe place is, and literally go on a walk with them, maybe just around the block, just to get out the door, whatever it is, just little bits, whatever the person can handle, without going into a panic attack. Like, you don't push them past their limit, you just get them comfortable with something that's just beyond their comfort zone, just a little bit. And then you push a little bit more, and you give them positive, and this is the most important part, you give them positive experiences in connection with the thing that they're afraid of. So in this case, the marketplace, the open public spaces. That therapy is next to impossible to do over telehealth. So you have an increase of people with a mental illness that is best treated with in-person therapy, with a therapist going in person to your home, to all that stuff, to whatever. And so until we end these restrictions and we say COVID is over and we stop, just like, we have to stop this thing. Like, this has to be done. And we have to end it now, because we cannot wait for a vaccine. The vaccine will not end it. Fauci will never declare that this is over. They've already telegraphed that they want to do this every year for the seasonal flu. And if we do that, we will just, I mean, I don't, I think we'll get beyond repair as far as our mental health in our society. And we're going to have just incredibly, I mean, that's where we see a societal collapse, or you see a huge push for antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Um, and which those medications, what they kind of do is they kind of dull everything. And you're able to go to work, you're able to go do the things you need to do, but a lot of people report feeling numb or feeling dull or feeling just everything is grayed out, essentially. Um, and if you can get, and a large portion of the population is already on these medications, that they seem to need in order just to cope with everyday life. Um, Whereas maybe that's should be a temporary stopgap to kind of get you out of a real bad situation, but that it shouldn't be the long-term maintenance, that there should be an effort to, through nutrition and exercise and therapy, to deal with the mental health issues and get yourself to a point where you don't need that medication anymore. Um, because if we get to the point where we have the majority of the population on this medication, that again, if you are somebody who wants a docile, easily controllable, easily suggestible population, um, that's a great way to do that, is to get everybody on these medications that kind of dull your senses, dull your emotions. You're not on most antidepressants. You're not going to want to start a rebellion. You're not going to want to fight back against mandates. You're not going to want to do civil disobedience. You just want to go to work and, yeah, I'll get whatever vaccine I need. I'll do whatever I got to do. Just let me go to work. Let me go do my thing. And so I could see that as a motivation, because you go, why would you so intentionally push this fear on people? But scared people are easy to control, and if you can push people to the point of being able to medicate them to make them even more easy to control. So this is where I say my hashtag COVID is over. And you've seen that on my Tumblr and on my Twitter. You've seen some of the graphics that I've posted. Please feel free to share those. Oh, and as a reminder, just, I hate to do that. I hate to be this YouTuber, but, please hit the like button if you're watching this. Please, subscribe if you haven't already. I do appreciate the like buttons. I do appreciate comments. Just let me know that you're watching this, that you liked it, that I should keep doing this, and all of that. Just let me know. But also real quick, and just because of, especially we're about to go into the election issue in a little bit here, down at the bottom, and I'm actually going to see if I can do this. There we go. So here on the show page right now on YouTube. So first of all, here's all our links and stuff like that. Right here, go over to this. So it says U.S. elections. The AP has called the presidential race for Joe Biden. See more on Google. And it's because I have in the title election fraud evidence presented. That's why it's giving you that notice, right? So it's because I mentioned election fraud. They have to remind you that the Associated Press has called the presidential race for Joe Biden. So therefore, whatever. Um, so if you go here, don't click show me, because that's just going to give you Google's stupid fact check thing. Go here to the three dots, click there's why am I seeing this, but click send feedback. And it's going to automatically take a screenshot of the page, which you can then highlight if you want to highlight specifically this US elections box. But I want you to put in the feedback, just something about how we don't care what the AP says about the presidential race. We want the fraud investigated, whatever you want to say here, but just something to let them know that we're tired of seeing those. Because I think they do need to hear that from people. But anyway, I think we have to start speaking up about this. We have to be pushing back in any way. And that's why I'm saying this. Like when you see those COVID-19 boxes, because sometimes you see the election ones, sometimes you see the COVID ones. If you see the code ones, definitely feel free to just do the feedback thing on the COVID ones and just do hashtag COVID is over. Just do that. Like if they got a whole bunch of those in their like feedback, troubleshooting, whatever inbox, I mean, who knows if it would change anything, but it's an easy thing you can do. So we have to open things back up. We have to get people back outside. We have to get people talking to each other, connecting with each other. We need neighborhood potlucks. We need barbecues, block parties. We need those events in order to heal. And we need people to attend those events. We need to start telling people you can go to a neighborhood block party and no, you don't need to wear a mask. You're fine. You have a 99.9997% survival rate. If you're over the age of 70, you have a 99.91% survival rate, slightly lower, but not in any significant way that makes a difference for you. Um, so really just being able to deal with this, being able to process all this information. So I want to encourage people, go here. Let me go to my Twitter. Twitter. So here's Twitter. And I have a few of these. So if you go on my Twitter, on my pinned post right here is the 7,000 person wedding in Brooklyn, at the Orthodox Jewish wedding. So impressed with these guys that they pulled this off. It's amazing. But if you can watch that video. I do recommend you watch it if you haven't already. It's honestly inspiring to me that this happened in November 8th of 2020, and that they were able to pull this off, and that that's just such a huge pushback to the craziness that we've had this year, just to be able to have a gathering like that in New York, right? So, and if you go to hashtag COVID is over, you see a lot of different posts from people, but a lot of the posts in this hashtag currently are from me. I want to see your posts in this hashtag. I don't want to just see my posts. But right now, it's a great way to find my posts. So I'm responding to different videos, I'm responding to different articles and things. So this is France. They are in the streets, they are marching, um, and they are against lockdown measures, and it's all of this kind of stuff. And then, it's like in San Antonio, they had a protest against the curfew, all this kind of stuff. This is the Johns Hopkins thing that was saying, hey, we don't actually have an increase in deaths this year. Even among old people, it's the same. Nothing has changed. And we've seen a decrease in deaths of other causes, and an increase in COVID that match up. So clearly, we just reclassified already expected deaths. But here's what I wanted to point out. So I have some of these graphics that I've created. This one, I like this one because it has the different hashtags that we can use. These are all fairly well used hashtags anyway. But if the more we can be on the same page about the hashtags we use, the more we can amplify each other with those hashtags. Like if I post stuff that says hashtag COVID is over, and you post stuff that's COVID is over, and somebody on either of our pages searches that hashtag, it kind of just helps connect like-minded people and helps people find more voices um, on this side of things. And no mask on me and lockdowns. COVID 1984 is a very popular one. So just using those hashtags. And again, feel free anytime I post these kinds of graphics that I've made, like I made this one, feel free to save this. You right click, save image. Oh, it doesn't show up on the, oh well. You right click and save image, and you can totally, save that and repost it. You don't have to retweet me if you don't want to. I'd love it if you did, but you don't have to. You can literally just save the image and repost it, and that is totally fine with me because I want these to be shared. Again, articles. Here's another one. This was in New York. This was New York City. They were burning masks on a grate there. Again, this is also New York City marching. And I liked this banner, and I liked this lady's freedom over fear sign. I saw a few pictures of her at this rally, and I liked her sign. And again, and this is like, supporting businesses. So that's another thing, like part of the whole ending this whole COVID thing. And this again ties back into the mental health thing because we have to get this over with now. A big factor in this, in ending this thing, is going to be businesses. And there are businesses that are stepping up and saying, no, enough. I'm losing my business. I'm losing my livelihood. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so businesses are stepping up and they're saying, we're done and we're going to be open. We're going to do our thing and you're not going to tell us what to do. Um, and they're facing fines and they're facing, in some cases, arrests. We're seeing arrests of business owners. Um, so if you can help in some of these cases, like this one has a GoFundMe. Now they ended up, I think, getting fully funded. Yeah, so they ended up getting fully funded, which is awesome. That doesn't mean that they don't still potentially need help, but finding things like this where this is a family restaurant that used to be part of a chain or part of a franchise, and they were disowned by the chain because of their refusal to comply with COVID orders. And so they were kind of left on their own. They just became an independent family restaurant, trying to stay open, trying to keep things going. So if you see those and you can support them either by, if you live in the area, go eat there, right? Or if you have friends in the area, buy them a gift card, or by donating to their GoFundMe's and other ways to support them, or even just sharing their information. Um, and again, more of the graphics. But then the other thing is when you have the other thing is like when you have restaurants that are defying orders, if they are publicly saying, "Look, we're defying orders, come here, we're gonna, we won't make you wear a mask." If they're advertising it, or if they're looking to pick a fight, if that's what their goal is, which all power to that. Like, yes, go for it. You go, girl. Like, I'm right there. Go support them. In those cases, if they're doing that, yes, share their information. Say, hey, everybody, this place is sticking up, for their rights and everything, and encourage people to go support it. However, if you happen across a place, and this happened to me recently, I'm not going to say where, I'm not going to say what business it was for the reasons I'm about to say, but I recently had the opportunity to go to a restaurant that was in an area where indoor dining was prohibited by COVID orders. Okay, in this area is California. California had COVID dining, or sorry, COVID orders had indoor dining prohibited. Now it's a stay home order. They've got stay home orders in all their purple counties and stuff like that. But I had the opportunity to go to a restaurant in California where indoor dining at that time was prohibited, but outdoor dining was allowed. And I went to the restaurant. I called ahead to make sure they had outdoor dining. Some places are takeout only. And I was like, okay, you guys have outdoor dining? They said yes. And I and my friends went there and we got to the place and they had people seated inside. Conspiratorial whisper here. They had people seated inside the restaurant and eating. Gasp, right? And so because it was the COVID orders were no indoor dining, but you could be outside in a tent basically that has four walls and that are zipped up and everything. But so we got to that restaurant, we saw that there were people eating inside, and we asked like, "Hey, can we sit inside?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, sure." We were like, "Okay." It wasn't even like, they weren't just, you know, they were just like, "Oh yeah, sure." And so I really hope that nobody rats them out because they were awesome and it was amazing food. But I'm not going to give the name of the place, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you the name of the place or where it is because there are people who may watch this video who would turn them in. And so this is the thing. You run into that restaurant and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we can eat inside, we can do this stuff." Um, you run into that place, do not post about it on social media. Do not do that because you will bring down the wrath of the local public health department and they will get shut down. They will get fined. They will have to deal with all this stuff that they probably weren't, you know, didn't, they were trying to avoid. They were probably trying to kind of quietly do their thing without, a big fuss. So do not post on social media. Don't just broadcast it, right? But what you do, number one, if you find a place that is acting normal in violation of COVID orders, first thing that you do is you patronize that business and you tip well. Especially if it's a restaurant, you tip them well in cash, preferably. If you can tip in cash, always do that. It allows the server to take the entire tip. They can choose whether or not, like if the restaurant has some kind of tip sharing, like there's a tip jar or something where it's all shared among the employees, they can do that if they want to, or they can just pocket it and nobody will know. Also, they can also choose whether or not they want that to count towards their taxable income. So make sure that you tip in cash whenever possible. And then when you eat there, you shop there, whatever it is, you tip them if appropriate, and then you quietly text or call or however, or tell in person, even better, your friends who you know are on the same page with you. You've had these conversations, you've ranted with each other about how terrible all this stuff is. Um, the people who you know are on the same page, you go to them and you say, hey, guess what? You can go to this place. And you maybe even take them out for lunch, like, hey, let's go out to the lunch at this place, or let's go shop here because of this. So that's what you need to do in order to, support them without getting them in trouble. So I wanted to just point that out because that's, again, we need to support those businesses in the most appropriate way. So whether it's broadcasting it, if they are making a public stand, or quietly telling your friends, like a speakeasy kind of thing, like word of mouth, letting the people who are sympathetic and who know what's going on, let them come support the business without getting the business in trouble. So that's really important because if we get the businesses are really the driving force behind these shutdowns right now, because in some cases it's not even necessarily in some cases it is a shutdown from the government. In some cases it's just businesses being scared to open up or to drop the mask requirements because they think people won't come. So a big thing is showing businesses, hey, we want you to be open. We want you to get back to work, and be full capacity and not make us wear masks. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to have more employees working. That means more people with jobs, more people getting regular income. You're going to have more people going out and doing things and having dinner with friends and all of that kind of stuff. We increase that sort of thing, we will see an increase in community and people willing to come out, willing to go out and do things, people becoming more comfortable with being out and about and normal life again. And and then in addition to supporting these businesses, also organize some parties. Like invite your friends who you know are done with COVID, and even maybe some friends who are like on the borderline who maybe aren't, totally done with COVID like you are, but they're like, okay, this is a little silly now. We should relax a little bit. Invite them over for dinner. Have a party. Have a backyard barbecue. Have those events and invite people over. Um, and make masks optional. If somebody wants to wear a mask at your party, let them. That's fine. Don't push that, but also don't make people wear masks and have these events because that's going to help get people more comfortable, and it's going to invite those people who are maybe feeling really isolated right now, giving them an opportunity to connect again. The more you can do that, the better. So all of that is part one of this. My gosh, I spent a lot of time on this, so we're going to go really quickly through the next two things. So let me find the first one that I was going to show. So hi, chat replay. So this is about the election fraud stuff. So a lot of people have said, where's the evidence? Why haven't they shared the evidence from this supposed election fraud? People are claiming that Trump won, but where's the evidence? Why hasn't anything happened with it yet? My first response to that is always fraud investigations take months or years. We've had weeks, right? And remember, again, I'm not a big super Trump fan, but I also do not want Joe Biden as president either. And I want us to have fair elections. If Joe Biden had won fairly without cheating, then that would have been one thing. I could have been disappointed about having him as president because he's terrible, but I wouldn't make a big deal out of this kind of stuff. But I do not believe we had a fair and transparent election. I believe that there was major fraud. I believe there were major irregularities. So in some cases, maybe not fraud where there's not necessarily an intent, but there's enough irregularities that could have changed the results. So what the mainstream legacy, whatever cable media is not telling you is that in the last couple of weeks or last week or so, yeah, this is November 30th. So starting basically Monday, there have been all of these hearings in front of legislators in these different states that are contested. So here's Arizona. Arizona state legislature holds public hearing on 2020 election. So this was members of the legislature. They had a public hearing. So it wasn't necessarily in session with the legislature, but it was members of the legislature basically sitting there and listening to Trump's legal team talk and witnesses talk about their evidence. So this is them presenting the evidence, and it is 11 hours. Now there's breaks in the middle, so it's not solid 11 hours of coverage. There's little breaks you can kind of skip past, but because it was a live broadcast, right? It was a live feed on Monday, saying, "Here is the evidence." They laid it out. They said, "Here's the evidence." So they go through all the stuff, all the networking stuff, all of the in this case, one of the things that we talked about in this hold on, something messed up here. One of the things that we're talking about with the fraud is the possibility of the voting machines, the Dominion or Smartmatic, two different companies, those voting machines being connected to the internet, being accessible via internet, being hackable via internet. Um, and so this diagram is related to that. It talks about how all the different machines are connected to each other, what's going to what server, that sort of thing. But they were showing evidence in this hearing that the machines were connected to the internet. And I have a timestamp on my thing. I'd love to go and just timestamp the whole thing, but I need to sit down for 11 hours or 8 hours or whatever and watch literally the whole thing and do timestamps, and that is going to take time if I'm going to do that. And I don't know if I'm going to have time while this is still relevant, but there's a specific link that I have in the description that says section on Dominion voting machine problems, and that's going to kind of skip you ahead a little bit to where they start talking about that. And you know the like the stuff that they're talking about, like this idea of the machines being connected via Ethernet cable to the Wi-Fi router, so aka accessible by internet. Like this is a concern, right? And they're looking at information that was information traffic that went from these machines to servers in Frankfurt, Germany. So like that alone to me is enough to say yes, I think there was major voting fraud and potentially enough to throw the election. So you have that. So I linked that below. Then we have next one is Michigan. So we have the Michigan one. I'm gonna hide chat replay. This was on December 1st, so November 30th. So Monday was Arizona. Tuesday was Michigan. They went and they had this was an official committee oversight committee hearing in the Michigan Senate Oversight Committee hearing on December 1st. And then we have this is Nevada. This was on December 3rd, so I might be out of order here at this point. I think Georgia. Yeah, here we go. Georgia was also December 3rd. They were both on December 3rd. That's impressive. So Nevada and Georgia both had theirs on December 3rd, where they had hearings and testimony. In Nevada, it's a hearing in front of a judge. So it was a judge having a hearing about it. In Georgia, it was also a Senate Oversight Committee hearing or meeting. So there's evidence being presented in each of these videos. This one's 3 hours. This one's 2.5 hours. This one's 7.5 hours, again with breaks. This one again is 11 hours. So it's a lot of footage, and I don't blame you if you don't watch it all, but I do think you should at least go into the comments. I want to show you the comments. No, I don't want to see upcoming things. I want to see the comments. Anyway, go look at the comments or go look at the chat because people are talking about different things like throughout. But just know that the evidence is being presented. The problem is it's not being presented by the mainstream media. So if you're turning on Fox News, you're turning on MSNBC, you're not getting this story. I've been looking at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Again, they're very pro-Trump, which, it's like, okay, their bias, but they are sharing the information. So they are very pro-Trump, but they are doing live streams. They are doing interviews. They're putting this information out here. So they did a whole promises made, promises kept series where it was things that Trump did that he promised to do and stuff like that. But if you go here to, there's Trump rallies, there's interviews with people. But if you go to uploads here, there's a lot of these like um, just all kinds of things. I like this one, interviewing a Joe Biden voter in Atlanta. It's a skeleton. Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, just interviews, testimony. So there's some shorter clips here. Like, actually, this one's still 5 hours. This is 5 hours of witnesses in front of legislature, I think. Just, Sidney Powell and Linwood press conference. So these are the things that you're not getting from mainstream media. You're not going to see these on cable news, but they are live streams. In some cases, these are live streams of press conferences, of hearings where evidence is being presented. And this is the biggest thing. You can say, oh well, they're biased. They're biased. Of course they're biased. But so is the mainstream media. The mainstream media is not giving you information, and these guys are, right? The mainstream media is going, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? We don't see any evidence. Whereas these guys are saying, hey, it's right here. It's being presented. Look at the evidence. It's right here. So it's really important, I think, that if you are out there saying there's no evidence or I don't see the evidence, then you should watch this, right? Or at least be aware that evidence is being presented and ask why are your favorite media channels not sharing it with you. So that's all of that. And yeah, I spent most of the time on COVID. I spent a little time on this. I just wanted to make sure people knew this is one great option, and you're going to see all the people I'm subscribed to and stuff like that. But I want my subscription channels. I don't want just like random whatever. All right. Crowder with Crowder. Steven Crowder. So he does Good Morning Mug Club on, what is it, on Monday through Thursday at 9 a.m. Central Time. He has show segments that you can watch, but if you go to uploads, he talks about a lot of different things. But there was a whole fraud week, election 2020. There's all this fraud stuff about Michigan voter fraud, election system fraud. So he went through affidavits, he went through evidence, and he said, "Here's the evidence. This is what we have. Here's what it's time to do." And it's a comedy show. He does make jokes that are considered insensitive, so be warned. But they're funny, and he's funny. And that doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. It doesn't mean that I'm, whatever. It just means it's funny, and he's presenting good stuff. So feel free to check that out. Sometimes the humor is a little crude. So again, fair warning. But Monday through Thursday, and it's 9:15 ish a.m. Central Time or 10:15 Eastern. And now for the final story that I had to talk about, the final topic, and oh my gosh, it's 1:32. Well, I guess I'm only going an hour, but still, we're almost done. We're almost done. This was just a story that I wanted to talk about because it's sad that this is good news, but it is good news, and we should celebrate it nonetheless. Even though, really, the fact that this is what we're celebrating is sad to me. But it's still something to celebrate. So this article came out yesterday, and for the first time in years, so here's the thing: is we got new data on abortions and live births in New York. And we don't, or specifically New York City. So we don't, you get, it's a delay. You don't always get last year's statistics right away. Like it takes a couple of years for them to put the reports together and put them out and gather and verify statistics and things like that. But they put out the statistics. 2017 was the first time in a long time. So we have the thing that Black babies born alive outnumber Black babies being aborted, which again is heartbreaking that we're even having to talk about this. But I think this is important, that when we're talking about, respecting people regardless of race and things like that, or even Black Lives Matter. If you're talking about Black Lives Matter, I think this is something we should be talking about. That, the fact that this is news, the fact that this is a new development, that for the first time in years in 2017, Black births outnumbered Black abortions, right? So, which means that because we're pushing back, and the pro life movement has been pushing back consistently and strenuously, and specifically making sure that Black Americans know how the abortion industry is targeting them so that they can resist it. Making them aware that they are being targeted by the abortion industry that has a history of eugenics and genocide. Again, watch Ma'afa 21 on YouTube if you're not aware of this. Um, being aware that abortion is harmful to the Black community, that Black people are being killed by abortion, and that if you want to marginalize a community, reducing their population is a great way to do that. And if you want to empower a community, great way to do that is to increase their population. So the fact that we're seeing, Black births outnumbering Black abortions is going to help us see an increase in the Black population in different areas, including New York City, which is good. It's a good thing, right? So this is good news. And I'm excited about this because it means that what the pro life movement is doing is working. There is an effort, there's been an effort to specifically communicate to the Black community for years now, and it appears to be working. And that's a good thing. So this is my good news. I wanted to end on good news that we are seeing progress. We will get there. We will, we're never, I don't think we're ever going to eliminate, we can't eliminate all bad things from the world this side of heaven. But we can make sure that the things that people have a chance at life and people get to go, fulfill their life and not be snuffed out in the womb. And so pregnancy, here's all the data. If you want to do a deep dive on the data and how it stacks up over the years and the different demographics and all of that. But here you go. So you have 2017 Black Lives births, 21,000 abortions, 20,000. The year before that, okay, 22 to 23. So it was 1,000 more abortions than there were births. 23 to 25. So you can actually see a steady decline because if you go back to 2000 and it was 32,000 to 45,000. That's a huge difference. But you see the abortion rate going down and the birth rate, the birth rate goes down a little bit, but kind of stabilizes out. It doesn't go down as fast as this does. So this is going down way faster. The abortion rate is going down way faster than the birth rate is. So I would like to see the birth rate go up because I am still concerned about 21,000 versus 32,000. I'd like to see that go up if we want to see the Black population increase and again gain back power, political power, economic power, right? You have to have people to do that. The smaller your population, the harder it is to stand up for yourself. So if we can see the Black population increase, we're going to see, I think we're going to see improvements there in being able to advocate and all of that. But I would love to see this abortion rate continue to decrease to 0. That would be amazing. So there's your good news for today. And I hope y'all enjoyed this or learned something from this. Please let me know if you have, let me know in the comments if you have topics for future videos for next week. Who knows what's going to happen between today and next Saturday? All kinds of things could happen. So I may have plenty of stuff to share next week, but feel free if you have specific things you want me to address, please put them in the comments and let me know, or let me know through Tumblr. Go to my Tumblr and send me an ask or send me a message and tell me what you want me to talk about because I do want to have that feedback from you guys. I want to talk about the things you guys want to hear about. I can sit here and rant all day about whatever, but it helps if it's something people want to listen to. So let me know what you guys think. And quick reminder that let's see. Let me go to I said quick reminder, and then I'm going to take forever to do this. By the way, in the description, links in the description, there's all my social media stuff. There's the sources for the things that I talked about today. There's the Freedom Cells link, which I've talked about before, which is how we're creating spaces to support each other if everything breaks loose. But real quick reminder that if you are interested in ordering a pyrography piece here, this is a great time to order that because today is the last day that you can order a pyrography piece and have it come in time for Christmas. And so let me I'm getting this link. So that's the form. Here's the Tumblr post. This is my Tumblr post that is pinned to my Tumblr blog, and it has the example of a piece that I made, and it has kind of my current stats on commissions. I'm currently working on I have one commission that's in progress. I did the outline last or 2 nights ago, and I'm doing the actual burning today, and then I got to seal it, and then I got to send it off. So sending that out. But if you order and pay today, there is still time to get it by Christmas. After today, I can't guarantee it'll be there for Christmas. Um, and all of that. Oh, conscious type person just chatted. Welcome, welcome. Can't wait for the new Home Alone movies. Of course, Trump appeared in Lost in New York. Looking forward to Lost in Pennsylvania, Lost in Georgia, and Lost in Michigan. I like it. Definitely. I think it's going to be interesting to see the movies that are made about this time, whether it's about the election or whether it's about the COVID and all this other stuff. Like it'll be interesting to see. I know there's already like a thriller action movie that's supposed to be about COVID, and I guess it's supposed to be about like resistance to the lockdowns or something. Like Michael Bay is doing it, so that should be really interesting. It's the idea that's like set a few years from now where we're still in lockdown and people are resisting or whatever. Which I don't know. That sounds interesting to me. But I'm already seeing the impact on TV shows and stuff like that. It's gonna be interesting to see what TV and entertainment does with all this. But yeah. So anyway, so if you order today, you can have it by Christmas. After today, I can't guarantee it will arrive by Christmas, but I can do my best. And at a certain point, it's not going to get there by Christmas. So if you have other reasons to buy gifts for people or you want stuff for yourself, you can order whenever. But and also quick note on the Google form. Here are the options currently available. We have square coasters, round coasters that have like the nice natural wood slice or natural bark on the outside, which is cool. Just a regular board, and that's where I did my Live Laugh Lord of the Rings. I did it on a board like this. These plaques that have stands, and I also have ones that are the same size as this, but they have or approximately the same size, but they hang on a string. So if you want something that's hanging, same deal. And then wooden frames. I have these wooden frames that I can do if you want a message. So this is, again, a great Christmas gift if you order today. Otherwise, again, after today, can't guarantee it'll be there by Christmas, but I can do my best. And you can always order anytime for any reason. And that's cool. So, with all that said, thank you guys so much for joining me, whether you join me live or whether you are watching later. Y'all have an excellent day, an excellent week, and hopefully I'll have some fun. Hopefully I'll have some more good news to talk about next Saturday. That's what I'm going to hope for. Okay, we're going to hope for a good news live stream next Saturday, whatever that may look like. So if you have some good news ideas, things you want me to talk about, please let me know. And if there's bad news to talk about, we'll talk about that too. But let me know what you want to see in the next stream, and I will see you guys very soon, hopefully, and stay safe.